And good morning. Welcome to Up North News Radio for this Tuesday morning, March 18th, 2025. I'm Pat Kreitlow here in Chippewa Falls. Just looking a little sparse back there as I continue working on my bookshelf project behind me here. Coming up on the program today, there's a new report out on President Trump's trade war and the places that are going to get hit the hardest because the people that Trump is targeting, the nations that Trump is targeting, friends of ours like Canada, the European Union, they know how to hit back. And it's in a very targeted way to impact politically sensitive areas. And yeah, Wisconsin's going to get hit worse than any other state because of President Trump's trade war. We'll explain coming up in just a bit. We'll have Christina Laurie here to talk about stories in our newsletter. Sharita Booker will talk about popular social media posts. We will have the latest on the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race. We'll tell you about Donald Trump Jr. coming to Wisconsin to talk about the importance of the Supreme Court race. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is coming to the Eau Claire area today. The state assembly is in session, and they're going to try to micromanage sheriff's departments. And, Derek Van Orden doesn't like me. I know. I'm just going to have to accept that, but we'll tell you the details on that and more coming up at 6:06. Brittany Merlot with that weather update, too. Winter storm coming to parts of western Wisconsin tomorrow. So all coming up in 3 minutes across the Civic Media Radio Network. We will see you here soon.
Johnson from Civic Media. This is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Tuesday morning, March 18th. Where are we at here now? 9 days until the Brewers season opener? It's another beautiful morning to have you here up north. Live from Lake Minnesota, from wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network or on the app, watching us on YouTube or Facebook, listening later by podcast. We appreciate you starting your Tuesday right here. And I've got a question for you. Would your opinion of me change? Your opinion of Greg? Your opinion of the show? Would it change if we confessed to you that Congressman Derek Van Orden made it clear yesterday that he doesn't like us? Will you still be okay with us?
If I wasn't Greg,
if you weren't Greg, yes, and you are Greg Bach. Yes.
I am Greg Bach. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the show. Beautiful show. If I wasn't Greg Bach, my love, respect, and honor for you would go up 20-fold.
Ooh, 20-fold. Okay.
20-fold.
Yeah. So we're gonna get into that at some point this morning. Tony's already busy on YouTube going, I hope today is gaslighting free. Well, you'll have to talk to the congressman about that.
We'll have to consult a dictionary first.
Yeah. Okay. The brief thing is yesterday I mentioned Derek Van Orden trying to gaslight people about, the cuts that Elon Musk is making haven't done any damage whatsoever. And I called him out for gaslighting. And he puts up a post with a full link to the whole clip so everybody can watch the show and watch where we say it. And then he just puts above that, like, you don't even know what gaslighting means. And he attaches the Merriam-Webster definition of gaslighting and then calls me a clown. And you look at the definition, and I'm going to admit, I looked at it. I'm just like, am I missing something here? And I'm looking at it going, oh, my Lord. He is trying to gaslight people now about the definition of gaslighting. This guy is too much.
First of all, Dairy Vons, I just want to say thank you for the free advertising.
Wow.
A
lot of exposure. Yes, thank you.
Just all that exposure. But second of all, bubbla. I looked it up in 3 different dictionaries, and yeah, okay, we'll talk about it further later, but just call me Tom because I'm just feeling petty today. What?
Also coming up on the program today, we will talk more about what President Trump and Elon Musk are doing because there's a new analysis out about its impact on individual states. And guess which state is at the top of the list of places that are going to get hurt by the retaliatory tariffs that are going to be put in place, because these other countries, Canada, China, the European Union, they're not doing the across the board tariffs like we're going to do this to all products from the U.S. They know how politics works here. They're targeting specific industries, specific places, swing states, red states, and Wisconsin's going to get hit the hardest. So we will talk a bit about that. Christina Laurie and Sharita Booker, 2 of my colleagues at Up North News, will be along talking about things that are in our daily newsletter and some of our more popular social media posts of the past week or so. So we'll have all of that. Meteorologist Brittany Merlot will be in with details on a forecast that is looking very sloppy for tomorrow, for basically the northwestern third of the state. I mean, it's going to be wet everywhere, but in terms of snow and apparently heavy wet snow, that's looking to fall with a winter storm watch that kicks into place early tomorrow morning. Precipitation starting late tonight. In fact, I do have Ms. Merlot's state forecast here. Let me pull that up for you, please. Winter storm watch early Wednesday morning until late at night for counties north of and including Trempealeau, Jackson, Clark, Taylor, Lincoln, Langlade, Forest, and Florence. So again, basically that northwestern third of the state. Rain will switch over to snow, causing some significant accumulations in the Northwoods. Power outages are possible. The forecast for today, partly cloudy and mild. Highs will be in the low 40s up north to the low 60s in the south, and an east wind at 10 to 15 miles an hour. Breezy tonight with light rain arriving, mixing to snow overnight. Lows tonight around 30 up north, upper 30s in the south, and a northeast wind at 15 to 20 miles an hour. Bus stop temperatures right now include, and it's a wide range, 33 in Lake Wissota, 23 in Hayward, 32 in Amory, Wausau's at 38. So is Wisconsin Rapids. La Crosse is 42, Green Bay 41, Madison 41. It's 45 in Milwaukee. And the warm spot in the state is at Radio Park in Racine, where Greg is. It's 47 there. It's 21 up in Superior. So, again, a big range of temperatures before that next weather system moves in here. Brittany's forecast details coming up in just a little bit. Then we've got our weekday newsletter that Christina Laurie puts together. You can sign up for it at UpNorthNewsWI.com. And she continues to mark Women's History Month with some notable women-centric moments in Wisconsin history. So again, sign up over at our website and get that Monday through Fridays, and then my Wisconsin Politics newsletter on Sunday mornings. There is a note here in entertainment news about the new things that are streaming this week. For example, Wicked starts streaming on Peacock on Friday. Let's see, there is also Anora, the Best Picture winner, began streaming yesterday on the Hulu. And Sherry and I called up the Hulu last night, and we saw the thing for Anora, but that is not what we were there for. We moved right on to what I wanted to ask Mr. Bach about, and I did not arrange this ahead of time, so you're getting a cold, genuine reaction from him. But the new stand-up from Bill Burr dropped yesterday, and so we watched Bill Burr's new routine, The Drop Dead Years. And enjoyed it. And I didn't know if that was something you were looking forward to. I don't know if you've even met him in your comedy roamings, but yes, that was last night's entertainment.
I have not met him in my comedy roamings. I am like a degree or two away from him. I've got friends who are friends with him, and I want to watch it because I feel like he's only gotten better with age. I feel like his opinions have gotten very interesting.
Yes.
And I'm probably going to watch it tonight, actually. Bridget's out of town this evening for a meeting, so I'm going to sit back with the dog and watch some comedy. And
yes,
I'm looking forward to it. I love Bill Burr now. Like, I was not the biggest fan of his back in the day.
Yeah, I haven't always been, and it feels like he's now finding his groove, which is, and again, take this from my standpoint, as a liberal, you look at him going, you want to be conservative, or you are, but you refuse to take yourself seriously. So you'll grouse about liberals, but you'll also grouse about conservatives. But I could also see conservatives watching him going, oh, you're just a Hollywood liberal. You're just trying to hide it by acting like a conservative. And my main point being is he takes neither extreme seriously and lampoons it mercilessly, so that no matter who you are, you're going to feel uncomfortable a little bit going, hey, wait a minute.
But I think the conversation for me where it gets interesting is because, if you go to a lot of comedy shows, and I personally feel like, the people doing the best who could be considered conservative comedy are liberal because they're consistently bashing the liberal party in a way that makes sense. And to watch him make fun of liberal standpoints, liberals be like, yeah, that's right. We do that. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But conservatives, when he makes fun of conservative, peccadillos and whatnot, they get like all like Bill Burr, like you said, he's a Hollywood elite. It's like, no, man, he's just a guy who stands on stage and makes fun of all of us. So
yeah,
you have a better sense of humor about yourself, man.
That's the perfect point. You have to have a better sense of humor about yourself. And I have seen now, Bill Burr talked about being in his 50s now. I think he said 54 or something like that. And we have seen no shortage of men who have been moderate for most of their lives or apolitical, and then they get a little bit older and they just veer way off to the right. And Bill Burr is what I wish a lot of these guys had become instead, where it's like, yeah, I definitely think we've gone too far with this PC stuff. But on the other hand, and then he'll rip into, conservative extremism too, and just have this balanced view of, he does not want to put up with a lot of the things that get people fired up like 24/7. And we've talked about that on this program. It's okay to care. It's okay to watch a newscast now and then and to not be completely ignorant to what's going on around you. But also, if you whip yourself up into a frenzy for things that don't directly involve you, you're going to wear yourself out and not be able to take care of the people who actually need care. And there are a lot of those folks out there right now. And
Yeah.
and Bill Burr is just, he's that splash of cold water saying, look, you're probably okay. So take it down a notch,
Yeah.
unless, of course, you're gaslighting a congressman. Then, I mean, you're just a terrible, terrible person.
I mean, I don't feel like we were gaslighting anybody. I feel like we were just,
That's the point. We weren't. He, on the other hand, I mean, he's already forgotten all this by now. You know how I know this? Because I counted before the show. And on Twitter alone, he tweeted 34 times yesterday.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even about us. I think that was on Facebook. So he's posting on different posts on Facebook. Does he not have a job? I think we pay him to do something.
We pay him very handsomely.
Other than to call people clowns and to, again, basically, look, he doesn't like the word gaslight. Basically lie about the state of things that are happening right now and not standing up. Look, you can agree with President Trump on 99 other things. But if you are in Derek Van Orden's shoes as a former Navy SEAL and everything else that you say about the military, if you can't find some daylight between you and Donald Trump enough to criticize him, not to say, oh, if it's bad, I'll say something. No. Things are bad. Say it. Say it, Derek.
Yeah.
Say it. If there's no daylight between you and Donald Trump on what he's doing to veterans, then it's small wonder that veterans think that you have completely turned your back on them. Sorry, Congressman. That'll probably draw another post. But we get asked by Alicia, is Derek Van Orden trying to surpass Trump on the number of tweets? No, I think Derek actually holds that record. Trump will put up, a couple of things late at night and, they're ridiculous. Like, oh, all Joe Biden's pardons are null and void. No, it doesn't work like that. Derek just is like going at the keyboard all the time. I got to insult this person. I got to answer that person. And we, this little show here, are among his newest friends.
This clown show.
This clown show. Thank you, Congressman. We appreciate that. We will look at more of the news headlines of the day coming up on Up North News Radio for this Tuesday, March 18th. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Be right back. Now let's visit with Sharita Booker, social media manager here at Up North News. Sharita, hello. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Nice to talk to you again. Been a little bit, so happy to have you back on the show here as we look at some of the posts that you've been working on posting. That makes sense. The posts you've been posting. Sure. That people are commenting about in the comment section. We're just going to be redundant and repetitive all the way through this segment. Let's start with one that's several days old now. But again, we're telling you the ones that get a lot of engagement. And Bernie Sanders is always going to get a lot of engagement when he shows up in Wisconsin and talks to some pretty large crowds, Sharita. So tell us about the post and reaction to it.
So Bernie Sanders visited Altoona recently for his Fighting Oligarchy tour, which is a resistance to Donald Trump's second presidency. And there was a crowd of around 2,600 people. And here's something he told them. He said, "We are here today because under Trump, our nation is facing a series of crises, unprecedented in our modern history. And what we do now in the coming days, in the coming weeks, and in the coming months will not only impact the lives of our kids, the lives of our grandchildren, and the very well-being of the planet in terms of climate. If there has ever been a time in modern history of our country to stand up and fight back, now is the time." And that post had more than 2,000 likes on Facebook. Audrey said, "I was there. It was incredible. It's nice seeing a politician who is for the people." And Peg said, "Thank you, Bernie. You are an inspiration and you bring us together in hope that we can save our country for our grandchildren, children, and grandchildren, great-grandchildren. You are a blessing."
And we're not going to, of course, sugarcoat the fact that there were plenty of comments on there as well from people who are not fans of the Vermont senator. So when we say a post gets a lot of engagement, it isn't all positive, not by any stretch of the imagination here, but there is no denying the large crowds, not only in Altoona, but the night before in Kenosha, as he continues to go into Republican congressional districts, especially since a lot of Republican members of Congress won't do town halls. So like he said, I came all the way from, and I can't do a Bernie impression, came all the way from Vermont to do a town hall because your member of Congress will not. And so hence the big crowds. And in a little bit, we'll talk to Christina Laurie about the cutbacks that these Republicans are making and the mental health toll that it's taking on folks as well. A sad story to talk about next. And I'm going to have to edit out that cough. A sad story to talk about next, and that, of course, is the passing of one of the landmark players in Milwaukee Bucks history, Sharita.
Yeah, so Junior Bridgman, who played 10 seasons with the Bucks in the 70s and 80s, passed away last week at the age of 71. He landed in Milwaukee as part of the landmark 1975 trade that sent Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to the Lakers. And after his NBA career, Bridgman became a business owner and he invested in Chili's and Wendy's. So he had 450 of those restaurants in 20 different states until 2016. And that post had a lot of engagement as well. Daniel said, "Great six man in hoops, greater man in life." And then we also had a lot of people commenting, "RIP."
Absolutely. And one here notes, Brian was the name, said that Junior was one of his favorites as a fan and as a boy, but was also a big fan of his business acumen once he got older and how he gave back to others. And I never get tired of these posts because, again, people will spend their money however they wish. Some people have more money than anyone else and could probably fund a cure for cancer if they want to. And instead, they're tearing down the federal government. Others, like Junior Bridgman, consistently gave back to others from his wealth. And it's one of the many reasons why he is so highly regarded in Louisville and in Milwaukee as well, where he owned a 10% share of the Milwaukee Bucks before his passing. Let's end on a lighter note. And my goodness, last year we talked so much about Top Chef. And of course it was, because Chef Dan Jacobs was part of the show. And so, it was kind of atypical to have a Wisconsin chef on there. The show was being held in Milwaukee that year. This next time around, it's going to be up in Canada, but there's still going to be a bit of a local tie, Sharita.
Yep. So we have Kat Turner now, who grew up in Sturgeon Bay and went to Marquette University, and she's competing as one of the 15 top chefs battling it out for season 22, which you said is in Canada. And if she wins, she takes home a prize of $500,000. Kat comes from a well-known Wisconsin family. Her grandpa, Patrick E. Hagerty, co-founded Texas Instruments and also owned Palmer Johnson Yachts. And if you've ever been to Marquette's Hagerty Museum of Art, yeah, that's named after her grandparents. And Top Chef premiered on March 13th, and you can catch it on Thursdays on Bravo or the following day on Peacock. And in the comments, Jenny Fight said, "This is so exciting. I actually coached Catherine back in the 80s while she was on the swim team in Sturgeon Bay. I adored her mom and her grandmother. Best wishes, Kat." And we also had many other comments wishing her the best of luck.
And it looks like she was fine. She was not eliminated in the first round. The second episode airs day after tomorrow, and then they will air consecutively for at least the next few weeks here on March 27th and April 3rd and April 10th. And we wish her all the best in getting through that. I'm sure Sharita Booker will see more posts about Top Chef and about Kat Turner as we move through the coming weeks here. Find everything she's doing over at UpNorthNewsWI.com and UpNorthNewsWI on all the favorite social platforms. Sharita, great to talk to you. Have a great day.
You too, Pat.
Spoiler alert, Pat didn't edit out that cough. Oh, well. Not everything on the to-do list gets done right away. There are 49 other states that are going to be impacted less than Wisconsin by Donald Trump's trade wars. You can find that story at our website, UpNorthNewsWI.com, where I write up the results of an analysis by the New York Times that looks at the retaliatory tariffs coming from Canada, China, the European Union, all designed to hit specific industries and basically specific swing states in the country. When you look at those industries that are going to be impacted by retaliatory tariffs, and you look at the number of jobs, the share of the workforce in each state affected by that, the other 49 states will have anywhere from 1 to 8% of their labor force working in industries that are getting hit by retaliatory tariffs. In Wisconsin, it's nearly 10%. And if you look at the map, I mean, you've got all these red counties. Price County, 20% of the workforce is going to be impacted. Sheboygan County, 23%. In Taylor County, 25%. In Trempealeau County, 30% of the jobs impacted by these retaliatory tariffs. And we'll see if Trump holds on to his support in those areas when the rubber hits the road. Christina Laurie's next. You're up north. Secret show.
Secret clown show.
Secret coughing fit. I can't believe
What happened? What are you talking about?
I coughed in the middle of a question. You were away, and then I say on there after the cough, I go, "Well, I'm going to have to edit that out," and then I start the question over again. And here in StreamYard, there's an edit function that I tried for the first time, and I edited out the cough. But clearly, when I went to then download it, I ended up downloading the raw version rather than the edited version. So everybody got to hear me hacking away over there.
Oh, the raw version, man, with all the swears. And
usually you pay extra. You pay extra for a director's cut like that. But no.
Now that we're on the secret show, I just wanted to say something really quick going back to what you were talking about, the conversation with Bill Burr. I just wanted to bring up the fact that Bill Burr, along with a handful of other older white comics, I think, are setting a really good example for how to combat this PC run amok, anti-woke crud coming out. They just have really good, like Anthony Jeselnik, Mark Maron, Bill Burr, Matt Bronger. They all have these great outlooks. Like, dude, you guys are like, if you think you're being trounced upon, you're not. You need like really just looking at it from a point of view, like, you're not persecuted. You're fine. None of you are going to be thrown in comedy jail. And it's not about not being able to say what you want. You can say whatever you want to say. Hey, if you're a comedian and you have a joke and you want to stand on stage, I support your constitutional and your artistic license to do it. That doesn't mean consequences don't follow if it's a terrible joke. So yeah, I just think there's great, and I think Bill Burr is one of those guys who's like looks at like we're anti-woke. You're like, you're bad comics is what you are. You just you're bad comics.
And again, kids, woke just means don't be a glass ball. Tony says when Bill Burr talks about guys with motorcycles and guitars having depression, my wife looks at me like, "You okay, buddy?" Yeah,
I feel hurt. Okay,
no,
I don't have motorcycles.
Yeah, let's see. We got and then we got this. Look what you've done over here, Greg.
What did I do?
We've got Tony going, I bet Derek Van Orden loves coconut too. Just an awful guy. Alicia, hold on. Let's not equate coconut to Derek Van Orden.
Yeah, I'd rather eat coconut than sit in a room with Derek Van Orden.
See, now that is saying something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you got Christina ready to roll here. Okay. Yeah, it's more coconut for you guys. That's what I say. I'm not judging the people who like it. You want to have it. It's more for you. That's what I say. I'll take the peanut butter patties and they had some new ones too, which looked really amazing. They did.
Yeah, we bought them. I'll bring them in tomorrow. Cassandra, for the record, I didn't bring this up.
You did. I just mentioned Samoas, and you said something like, ugh.
No. Just now, Tony.
Now Alicia goes, Cassandra, it's Tony's fault. He brought it up. There, let's put it on Tony. There.
I'm just living my life, making sure everything's staying nice and
coconut-free,
disinfecting the wipes. I've spilled a little coffee, so I'm just making sure it's all good because I care about my other producers.
There you go. That's your problem. You care too much.
I know. I'm full of care. And barbecue. All right. Secret Clown Show.
Hey, welcome back on this Tuesday morning. It is time for The Uplift, our weekly visit with Christina Laurie, who puts together our daily newsletter and so many of the stories you see on social media about life in Wisconsin, people helping people, sports, food, you name it. Christina, good morning. Can I assume you did not go out on a Monday night for St. Patrick's Day?
I'd never done that in my life before, and I figured, why start now?
Never? I just thought that was like a rite of passage in Chicago that everybody had to go out for St. Patty's.
No, I have seen the Green River, though. Have you?
Just video, not in person. I have a tough time believing that can actually be done safely. So it always makes me a little not squeamish, but uncomfortable to see it. But you're the one that lived there, so maybe you have more faith in the green dye than I do.
Yeah, or maybe I'm more gullible, but I believe all the stories that, it was kind of the routine story where they talk about how they use environmentally friendly dye that is completely safe. And, Lake Michigan, I don't think that they would want to mess with the drinking water because the Chicago River does flow into Lake Michigan, which has notoriously clean water. Yeah. So I'm choosing to believe them.
Same here. It still feels a little
awkward. It does look weird, but yeah. I would just be, here's my thing. I bet a lot of people in Wisconsin drank green beer last night. If you drink green beer and were an anti-COVID vaxxer, you have some soul searching to do. because the one is CDC approved and one is definitely not. So your argument does not hold any water anymore.
That is a very good point. And it reminds me that boy, hard to believe we're at the 5-year anniversary, but it was St. Patrick's Day in 2020. A lot of folks were getting set to go out for the night, and that's when the order came down to shut it down, that COVID had come to Wisconsin, and had come in such a number that it was the beginning of shutting things down, bars, restaurants, so many things. Now, obviously, hindsight is 2020, so we're not going to judge these things. We're just simply talking about the memories of that week back in 2020 when, I mean, Christina, you never knew this. Up North News actually had a newsroom in Madison before we became, an all work from home company because of COVID. What do you remember about, those days when COVID really first came on the scene?
The day before the world shut down, my uncle and my grandpa my uncle was visiting a customer and my grandpa went with for a road trip. So they took me out to a restaurant, and that was the last restaurant that I set foot in for the next 2 years.
Just crazy. I mean, just such a time, and let's not forget what a scary time it was. But again, all these years later, we've made a lot of progress. We lost a lot of people, but we made progress to the point where I'm sure a lot of people went out and had a good time last night. Let's talk for a moment here about of the many stories that you've worked on. There was one that certainly made a connection with me, and it was about ways that people had been showing their support for Ukraine. And I hold up for the social media camera here my candle from the Door County Candle Company with the blue and yellow or blue and gold colors of the flag of Ukraine. But Christina, just when I first heard from you about that way to show your support for Ukraine, but of course I couldn't just stop there. So I also have from Door County their warm apple pie candle, and I have here one called Summer Rain. And this is my public service announcement. You should not have 3 very different candles open all at once, because it's very fragrant in here right now in a very mixed way. I should have just stuck with the Ukrainian one as one small way to show support, Christina.
I was gonna say, how big is your house?
Yeah, well, these are just small candles, but I've got them all right here by my keyboard, and I'm quickly capping them again because again, 3 at once, a little too much.
You're gonna start smelling like the Inky Candle store.
That's right.
You feel like you're gonna get knocked out. Yes. Yeah. But if anybody is in the market for a candle, it does not sound like you are anymore, Pat. But you can order from Door County Candle Company. They ship everywhere. And the owner is from Ukraine. Her name is Christiana. She's owned the candle company for almost a decade now. And so when this war started now 3 years ago, she decided that she wanted to do whatever she could in her small capacity to raise some money for families living back in Ukraine, since she was born there and had family members still there. So she decided to start selling 16-ounce vanilla scented blue and yellow candles like the one you just held up, to raise money for Raise Them for Ukraine. It's a nonprofit that provides on-the-ground support for families affected. So to be clear, this money is not going to war efforts. It's going to peace efforts to try to keep these innocent people safe, make sure they have enough food, make sure they have access to the health care that they need, and survive. They didn't ask for this. So her initial goal was just to sell 30 and $10, all of the proceeds. It takes $20, fun fact, to make one of those candles. $10 is proceeds. All of that goes to charity. And over the past 3 years, she's raised more than $1 million.
What?
And she's not slowing down anytime soon, just from candles. It's absolutely incredible. And the even more impressive part about this is that her company now has a $10 million goal over the next 10 years. So they want to, continue on the pace of $1 million a year. And now they're not just raising money for Ukraine, although that is kind of the most pressing issue right now, of course. They've also made a special edition candle for the wildfire victims in Los Angeles. They've sent money to the fire that happened a few years back in Hawaii. That was absolutely devastating. They raise it for a bunch of different causes. They have a powerful candle that's for cancer research. So they have, if you go visit their website, they have an entire line of what they're calling fundraising candles. You can find them all there. It just is a great way to do multiple good things. Support a local Wisconsin business, someone who's personally going through a really tough time having family in Ukraine, and then obviously supporting the victims of a war that they didn't ask for or want to be a part of.
I mean, this is just really something to hear that that's the dollar amount. And you just never know where this kind of help will come from. Customers to a candle store. And I was, this was last year sometime when I was there, and it's a lovely shop. Just such a wide variety of products out there, except I'm only now realizing, Christina, that every one of them has kind of a cork lid on top. And on each one it's kind of looks like it's a little, it's got a smear of some sort on there. And I thought maybe it was candle wax. I thought maybe it was part of the candle making process, and they just, put a little candle wax on top or something. I don't know. It now occurs to me, I'm looking at, they're all the same. It's the outline of Door County, just the little finger peninsula sticking out on top of that. So I feel smarter, but wouldn't have done that if I didn't have these 3 candles lined up right in front of me, making things as aromatic as they've ever been in this office. So
that's really funny. And this is a complete tangent, but that reminds me of, remember back in the day when ripped jeans first got on the scene?
Yes.
I didn't get the memo when I was shopping, and I was shopping with my grandma, and we were looking for just regular jeans. And she was like holding them up and going, "It's so weird. They're all ripped. Do they know this?" And we were all ripped in the same place. So.
And I remember, the first time they said, "Oh no, they're distressed. They're distressed jeans." And I mean, I just laughed it off. And what was it? Last year sometime, for the first time ever, I bought a pair of distressed jeans because I happen to like the way that they look. But there's always a part of me that imagines, yes, that my grandmother is seeing me in those jeans and going, oh, Patrick, how could you do that? Because they used to patch up our jeans when they'd rip. Now it's like, nope, you don't patch them. They're distressed. It's how they're supposed to look. Oh, of all the many things that have been going on lately, especially with the new administration here, there's been a lot of battles here. Nothing like what's going on in Ukraine, but gosh, sometimes it feels like there's a political war going on here, and that a lot of people are caught in the middle. These cuts that have been made have been pointed out by many folks, not the least among them Senator Tammy Baldwin, talking about how the 988 Veterans Crisis Line, how employees there, faced not knowing if they'd be able to keep the line staffed. And, this has really taken a toll on a lot of people, what the president and what his co-president have been putting the country through.
You're absolutely right. And the biggest issue is that it's not even just that the cuts are happening, it's how they are happening. It doesn't have to be done this way. Nobody's arguing that there isn't bloat within the federal government and we need to cut some of these jobs. But there's no reason that you need to give employees at USAID, for example, only 15 minutes notice that they're fired, and then they have to go back in and, get all their stuff. That happened last week. And then luckily my job here is always to look for the good. So the positive of this was that a bunch of strangers lined up outside USAID headquarters with signs saying, "Thank you. You didn't deserve this. We appreciate you." And that's great. But I think it's also important to take a step back and just realize the ripple effects that this is going to have for a long time. When people lose their job, their odds of dying by suicide increase by more than 5 times. So, I mean, we're already seeing it happening, unfortunately, across the country.
Yes.
And I'm getting a lot of messages from federal workers who are working remotely or have been here in Wisconsin who were laid off. And they're just they're looking for any sort of work. They didn't deserve to be laid off. And it's just so chaotic and terrible the way that it's happening.
Right. I mean, these are people who've quite literally have been serving their country and being unceremoniously dumped by somebody that arguably is not currently serving the country. And so many people here thought, well, okay, if we're going to go after excess spending, there are ways to go about doing it. But there are others who say, well, we've just got to tear it all down. And, so what if all these people get fired? Well, it does have an impact. It has a real human toll that it's taking. And, it puts a challenge on the rest of us to try not to exacerbate it too much, to try to be there for each other. Because what do we always say, Christina? You never really know what somebody else is going through.
And yes, to quote my favorite novel, To Kill a Mockingbird, Atticus, you never really know someone until you climb into their skin and walk around for a little bit. And I really think that's at the crux of all of this. The thing that I found most disappointing, and this isn't just in this instance of firing workers, it's really, I think, the reason that the entire MAGA movement took off, is that there's a giant section of people that think that if life was hard for them, it should be hard for others as well. So, if they had to do things a certain way, they couldn't work from home up until 5 years ago. Nobody should be able to work from home. If they had to go through the immigration process the long and tedious way, it should be long and tedious for no reason for absolutely everyone else. And I'm from a different school of belief that I would like to make the world an easier, better place for future generations. So if something was hard for me, I'd love to see it be easier for someone else.
Yeah. And I think that's a very healthy change of mindset, but one that clearly is working up a lot of resistance. Well, as we all look out for one another, one of the things that's going to help is the coming of spring. First day of spring is coming up here in just a few days. And then the Brewers season opener later next week. We're only 9 days away now from the Brewers season opener. I suppose we have to talk about the White Sox as well once this gets going.
I don't know. That it's a touchy subject, Pat. I'm going all in on my Brewers fandom.
I was going to say we may have finally lured her over, folks. We may finally be there. Christina Laurie, thank you so much. We will be there if necessary for the bonfire of the White Sox, swag, and get you all decked out in new Brewers gear. But we'll cross that bridge once the season starts next week. Have a great day.
Well, I do have a Jose Quintana vintage White Sox bobblehead. I could just put a little Brewers cap on him now.
Actually, you really should. That's going to make a great social media post. That sounds perfect. Thank you, Christina. Talk to you later.
Bye, Pat.
Remember to get the newsletter, weekdays by Christina, on the weekend by me. You can sign up at our website, UpNorthNewsWI.com. When we come back, Dan Hagan from Newswatch 12 should be along for today's history lesson next. You're Up North. This would be Wilson Pickett. Born this day in 1941. Passed away in 2006 within the midnight hour. Kicking off today's history lesson for this March 18th. Also kicking off the history lesson, Daniel Hagan from WJFW, Newswatch 12th and Rhinelander. And this email. Hi, Pat. Was thinking I could still make it to the show, but the Wi-Fi on this island just isn't stable enough. See you next week, Dan. I checked the weather on his island. It's 76 right now on the way to 86. Dan, I'm heartbroken for you, buddy. Oh, wait, the Wi-Fi is too unstable for him to listen over the app as well, so he's not hearing this. So, but we'll see him next week.
I knew we couldn't trust Dan Hagan of channel 12, 13?
12. I was 13. He's
13.
12 in
Yeah,
Rhineland.
take it. Yeah.
No, Dan, have a great time. Safe travels, and we will see you again soon. Last week, we had the birthday for Jerry of Ben and Jerry's. Today, it's Ben. Ben Cohen is 74 years old. Well, they were childhood friends, so I suppose they were in that same age range. Irene Cara was born this day in 1959. Irene Cara, who had this from Fame, and also, of course, Flashdance, the theme from that, passed away in 2022. The late Charlie Pride was born this day in 1934.
I love this song. I love Charlie Pride. I miss him every day.
Charlie passed away in 2020. He was born on a cotton farm in Sledge, Mississippi.
Yep.
And had multiple country chart toppers, including Kiss an Angel, Good Morning. Bonnie Blair, the pride of West Alice, is 61 today. 5 gold medals. 3 world titles in speed skating.
What have you done today?
Yeah. Not that. Happy birthday, Bonnie Blair. Happy birthday to Vanessa Williams, the singer and former Miss America, is 62 years old today.
Have you ever heard the wolf cry?
God, I haven't heard this song in a long time.
You know, you got to love when little kids can't quite get a word quite right, and it's just adorable.
Yes.
Like, you know, one of my daughters, a grilled cheese sandwich was like a grilled cheese sandwich. Nail polish was Paul Nailish. I had a nephew who loved this movie, but all the time was saying, play Pocahontas instead of Pocahontas. So, singing from Pocahontas is Vanessa Williams, 62 today. Queen Latifah, born Dana Owens in Newark, New Jersey, is 55 today. Maroon 5 singer Adam Levine is 46 today. This is International Teach Music Week. I'm trying to figure I guess if he's on The Voice and he kind of does a little music mentoring, so I guess that applies to him. The number 1 song this day in 1967 was by the Beatles.
Penny Lane, there is a bar showing photographs of every head he's had the pleasure.
I love this song.
I do too. Any reason to play it works. Let's see. On this day in 1978, the number 1 song was Night Fever by the Bee Gees, and it stayed in the number 1 slot for 8 weeks, becoming the longest running number 1 song of 1978. Let's see. There were more national weeks I missed yesterday. This is National Fragrance Week, which I believe I properly celebrated in that last segment, having 3 candles open at once. Do not recommend. Happy Introverts Day. All you introverts, run out into the street and celebrate. They won't, trust me. This is Pediatric Nurse Practitioners Day. This is Biodiesel Day. And that was something I'd worked on in the legislature. There was, how biodiesel can be made here in Wisconsin rather easily. And it was just fun watching the science grow on these things, watching the research that is done here. again, not to get too editorial in the history segment, but when you see funds cut for research for things that could actually increase our energy independence, it's just a real shame. Today is Forgive Mom and Dad Day.
Okay.
Today is National Agriculture Day. Thank you, farmers.
Nice.
Global Recycling Day. This is National Sloppy Joe Day. So, do you have anything special that has to happen with your sloppy joes? I mean, for some folks, it's just ground beef and maybe some chopped up onions and either tomato soup or tomato paste or something.
Tomato paste. I also like to throw a little seasoning in there, just a little more seasoning, and then I make sure I don't use the typical hamburger bun. I'll use maybe like a thicker one, and then I'll scoop it out so that way the sloppy won't get so sloppy and it's a little carrying case.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's World Social Work Day, and it is Transit Driver Appreciation Today. Let me do that again. Transit Driver Appreciation Day today. So when you get on the bus today, say thank you to that transit driver for taking care of that. Alicia notes, what have I done today? I've cleaned 8 bathrooms so far today. And about Introverts Day, she says, nope, it's this Introverts Day to recover from all the peopling I did yesterday. That makes sense. Especially
at all.
You didn't people? No, you probably didn't. You just,
no, I don't.
Just sit here.
I'm an introvert myself. I know it sounds weird to say, but I don't people. I'm not a people guy. I people when I need to people, and then I'm home. I love being home.
I don't know. I'm sure I'm missing the proper word to describe me. I'm not an extrovert. I'm very much an introvert until I get to know you. As soon as I know somebody, I'm like, oh, very outgoing. But it's that first step of meeting somebody new where I am like as introverted as it gets. What's the word? Weird. I think the word is just weird that we're looking for. Much more ahead in the second hour of Up North News Radio, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. He's just weird.
Yeah. We play a little more.
Same, Alicia. Same.
Oh, God. Alicia, can I just tell you, just pulling up to the drive, getting in and then the dog comes downstairs and attacks you with kisses and love.
Aww.
I know. And we got the house to ourselves tonight. Bridget's out of town on a business meeting, so it's just me and the bubble girl.
You and the puppy.
Yep.
Watching a little comedy.
Yeah. You know what? That's exactly what I'm gonna. That's what I'll make some dinner. We'll watch some comedy.
Maybe some sloppy joes.
Sloppy joes.
Sloppy joes.
Excuse me. I am a fancy man. I like sloppy Josephs. Thank you very much. Secret Clown Show. It took everything in me, Pat, not to like post that post.
I mean, you're allowed to. It's okay.
I know, but I feel like then I'm just like
you're adding to the the negative political environment out there.
Yeah, exactly. But also, it's just like, what does it gain me? Like most, it's a congressman from Western Wisconsin. Most of my friends are like, "Who is that? Is that your cousin or something?"
Right?
No, it's not.
He's nobody.
Yeah, no, he's nobody. So, all right, I'm gonna sit here and work on some stuff.
I gotta get coffee.
Go get coffee. See you later. See you in hour 2 and this has been the Secret Clown Show.
Hello, Ms. Merlot. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Good, thanks. Let's see. Bum, 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 bum.
Good morning. And I definitely wasn't just listening to Lady Gaga.
No,
What
not
the
at
darn-
all. Of course not.
Poker face? I'm just
No. Abracadabra, her new track. Oh my God, it's so good. I can't stop listening to it.
kidding. That's awesome.
All right.
Here we go.
5 seconds. Secret Joe.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
And good morning. Welcome back to Up North News Radio, unabashedly Wisconsin, brought to you by Courier Newsroom and carried by our friends on the Civic Media Radio Network at 7:06 on this Tuesday morning, March 18th. Coming up, well, more than we expected, because Dan Hagen couldn't join us in the last segment. He's on vacation here. And we get this note from Hans Breitenmoser saying he feels awful for Dan having to lie on that beach. Would we like him as a guest? Yes, we would. So we'll talk to Hans, pinch hitting for Dan, coming up a little later on this hour. We've got a lot of ground to cover, everything from Derek Van Orden referring to this little endeavor as a clown show, to a bill that Assembly Republicans are going to be passing today that micromanages sheriff's departments around Wisconsin and puts racial profiling above public safety. But first, what a messy day could lie ahead of us as early as 24 hours from now. Meteorologist Brittany Merlot here to tell us about another storm system moving in, because what do I say, kids? Winter doesn't go away until it breaks you.
I was going to say, because God has forsaken us, but that's fine. We'll go with yours. It's good.
Wow. Well, God's forsaken you. He won't let you enjoy coconut. So, yes.
Oh, true.
Honestly, the comment section is still just going wild with coconut wars. So we won't even. There's winter coming back again, and Brittany's got to tell us about that. Brittany, tell us about the stuff that falls like flaky white coconut upon us all tomorrow.
Oh, that was a good transition there. I'll
you.
give you that one. Yes.
Okay.
All right. So we do have that winter storm watch that went out last night, all the way from Eau Claire to Wausau to Rhinelander, north to Ashland to Rice Lake, all the way over to Minneapolis. And that same exact area is probably looking at a hefty 7 to 11 inches of snowfall. And of course, this is going to start moving its way in through the overnight hours tonight into early tomorrow morning. That's when everything's really going to start. Ramps up throughout the afternoon, and then it starts to dissipate as we go into the evening and late night hours. So it's going to be an all-day event for the Northwoods, getting hit with heavy, wet, slushy type of snow. Our temperatures are going to be in those low 30s, so it is going to be that wet, sloppy kind of snowfall where it does ice over pretty quickly as that cold front comes through on Wednesday night and into our Thursday. That is when the rest of the state is going to see rain switch over to snow. So this will start on Wednesday afternoon and into those evening hours before the system kicks on out of here and is done for our Thursday. We'll actually see some sunshine, but obviously be in the cooler temperatures too for Thursday. We actually have another system headed our way too, but let's get through this one first because winds are going to be vicious too, gusting around 40 to potentially 50 miles per hour. And when you have those big, wet, heavy flakes and they kind of all are falling heavy at once and those winds on top of it, that's what creates whiteout conditions. So it's going to be very hard to drive out there. And of course, the roads are just going to be pretty terrible as we go through this system.
Happy first day of spring on Thursday, everybody.
Yay!
As winter spends its last full official day going, oh yeah? I ain't done with you yet. Good morning from Tigerton, writes Rob. It's partly cloudy, 40 degrees with a nice pink sunrise this morning. Yesterday went to Clintonville to pick up my snowblower at Adams Small Engine. Had supper at the Clintonville A&W, one of my favorite restaurants around. Looks like March madness of weather will continue with the Wednesday snowstorm for some of us. Could we have another snowstorm on Sunday?
Yep.
I don't know what Rob is trying to get out of on Sunday, but he's already making requests to get out of it, whatever it is.
Oh, I know. We are just the target of a couple storms. So yes, this is just one of the 1-2 punch.
Yikes. More. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Is there any snow that will be heading southern statewide or is it heading north?
That one, actually, the second one looks like it wants to hit southern parts of the state at this moment. But obviously, even this
Yeah.
one today, the track is still shifting. It doesn't know if it would rather target the Northwoods or La Crosse and Wausau area. So they're iffy. But that one, Sunday, yeah, southern
Yep.
parts of the state, heads up.
You'll have to stay tuned for the nowcast on that one.
Yep.
Which is when it's actually happening here. To previous conversations, and Greg was talking about just how lovely it is to just be home. Yep. Sometimes Alicia's saying home is my favorite place. The dog greetings, the dog attacks, when they attack you with love when you get home, those are the best. Cassandra writes in, a house is not a home without a doggo. We kind of sort of adopted the neighbor's dog yesterday.
Nice.
Does the neighbor know that?
Yes, it's an older couple, and the dog is a puppy and is very spirited, shall we say, and was looking to be a handful. And we thought, what that dog needs is a good long walk, to get tuckered out. And our neighbors, God bless them, they're not going to take the dog on a long walk. And so we said, can we do that? Because we got to. We could use a little bit more exercise, and we did. I'll tell you what, after a mile, that dog who was just so like, I'm jumping all over you. I'm jumping all over you. Can we go home now?
Yeah.
And I'm betting our neighbors had a much quieter night than they have had for some time, and we got some exercise in. So we're like, okay, you're kind of our dog now after work. We'll take you for a walk.
Oh.
You want to knock that out real quick? Find yourself a good dog park in your area. Let the dog get out like 20-30 minutes, and it'll be asleep in the back of your car.
If you live in an area with a dog park, it's great. And there is one in Chippewa Falls, not too terribly far away from here, and it helps. But this dog, much like the dog that we had for many years, never quite properly trained. In other words, if it sensed that leash was off, the dog park is basically the entire farm field across the street, and it will run all the way across that field into the barn, roll around in some silage juices and whatever else is on the floor of the barn, and maybe then come home. So
silage juices.
Okay. Big fan of the dog parks with fences when they work. Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I wondered if Rob was trying to get out of something. No, Rob writes.
I was going to say
snowstorms are money makers for me. That's what we're talking about. All right. Well, good. See, we're all about the revenue streams here for weather. That's
we're
not
all about
snowfall.
the dollar
That's
bills,
revenue.
y'all.
Yes. Brittany, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you guys. You too.
Not a lot to tell you about in sports today because, again, everything's a little bit later on in the week. You've got the NCAA basketball tournament, of course, with the Badger men taking on Montana on Thursday. They'll be playing in Denver. Marquette will be playing on Friday against 10-seed New Mexico. That game will be in Cleveland. And the Bucks start a 5-game road trip against Western Conference teams. They will be in Golden State tonight, Thursday in LA against the Lakers, Saturday in Sacramento, next Monday in Phoenix, next Wednesday in Denver. So they won't be home again until Friday of next week. The Badger women's hockey team is in the Final Four. They will be playing the Minnesota Gophers on Friday evening in the Twin Cities. So that's just a little look at sports that's going on now. Let me pick up on a question or a topic that Christina Laurie and I were talking about in the last hour. And that is yesterday being St. Patrick's Day. We didn't dwell on it too much, but it's been 5 years, folks. 5 years ago on St. Patrick's Day was when the shutdown order came because it was clear that COVID-19 had arrived and that Wisconsinites were starting to die. This crazy illness that we had no vaccine for, that nobody had any answer for. I mean, I don't even think Ron Johnson was hawking, horse paste yet as a remedy. This was a completely new and terrifying thing. And as some people like to say, last week was the last normal week. And then 5 years ago, everything changed. And so if you would like to share a story of where you were or what you remember from that time, you can certainly jump in the comment sections, as all kinds of folks are doing now on YouTube and on Facebook. Go to the Up North News YouTube page, the Up North News Facebook page, the Civic Media Facebook page. You can also call or text us 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842, and what you remember about it. And over at couriernewsroom.com, we have several different columnists who share their work with us, including Melissa Ryan, whose newsletter is called Control Alt Right Delete, and tracking the rise of right-wing extremism. And she talks about it being the last normal week and where it all went wrong from that moment onward. She writes, Trump's presidency and the MAGA movement that supports him undoubtedly made the pandemic worse for Americans. He was unable and unwilling to unify us in the way that we expect an American president to do when faced with a global crisis. He was also unable and unwilling to use the pandemic preparation plan created by the previous administration. Rather than tap into the federal government's knowledge and institutional memory on public health, Trump's son-in-law sourced research from a Facebook group of ER docs. Trump encouraged the anti-mask protest movement and refused to wear a mask himself most of the time. He refused to advocate all that hard for the vaccine, even though its development was one of the few wins of his administration. Trump wouldn't even follow CDC recommendations in the White House or when he caught the virus. We'll never know how many lives were lost as a result of the Trump administration's negligence and opportunism. And there's much more in Melissa's column as well. You can go to Courier Newsroom and head over to her Control Alt Right Delete column. And it is something that still conjures up strong feelings from many folks. Strong feelings from people who somehow feel like the precautions were some kind of infringement on civil liberties and on their freedom. When we asked people to avoid social contact and to keep the kids home from school, because we did not yet know what would be the impact on kids, how easily it could be transmitted from kids to teachers and older staff members at school or to their grandparents. Cassandra writes on YouTube here, it was such a weird time. Our hospital didn't get hit super hard until that fall, but we were always on edge. Then in October, we got slammed and it didn't stop. We went straight into trauma season. And I remember that well because in our newsletter, we would have the daily totals, number of cases, number of hospitalizations, number of deaths. And it was in the fall when some people were starting to let their guard down and saying, look, it doesn't seem to be that bad. And then, of course, as they started mingling, the number of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths skyrocketed. Thank God for the vaccine and the people who developed it. And I will never stop being grateful to those folks, just as I will never stop carrying their flag now that the funding for research and development and humanitarian aid and everything else is being cut by the same guy who led to God only knows how many deaths starting 5 years ago this week. Back after this. You're Up North. Again, Adam Levine is 46 years old. You can catch our history lesson every morning at 6:50, Monday through Friday on Up North News Radio. We'll certainly be on the lookout for other COVID takes that come in from 5 years ago, but I will address this text from Mark in Sussex, who writes, "Okay, snowflake, more people died under Biden. Trump fast-tracked the vaccine." Yes, Trump fast-tracked the vaccine and then inexplicably started to buy into the vaccine denial. But the more people died under Biden thing, yeah, true. Know why? Complacency and callousness, accelerated by that same guy who fast-tracked the vaccine. Greg, you said you were listening in. It was in the room next door to you, but we haven't talked yet about Brittany Kinzer's interview with us on Friday, and then he was on with Earl Ingram, or she was on with Earl Ingram yesterday.
Yeah.
And I know folks definitely got the impression during our interview on Friday that she wasn't exactly looking to answer the questions. And when I tried to steer her back to the question, especially the cost of voucher schools, she simply accused me of, wanting to interrupt her and let her finish her point. But the point never came back to how we can financially sustain two school systems in the state. Did you catch anything on Earl's show that might have illuminated that further?
As far as I know, no. I was prepping for Matt on air when she was on, but from what I gleaned from other people, they said that she was not doing her best to answer questions as well. And I just want to say this too, and Dan made the point, and you made the point too, thanking her for being on civic media at all, because it had been easy to not be here. But she came on and just didn't really give the reasons why she wants to be the head of the DPI. And I think that's an important thing to throw down there, because that's an important job. You're talking about how many children in this, I think 800,000 children in the public school system. And if you can't answer why two revenue streams isn't a good idea, then I don't know why we should be voting for that person then.
There is no doubt that she is a staunch and strong advocate for kids and for charter schools and for private schools, and to give people a choice. And to be clear, and we have been very clear about this, if you choose to send your kid to a private school, to a charter school, whatever, that's great. That's great. You have that freedom to do that. But I'm always going to advocate tirelessly for the local public school in your neighborhood, wherever your neighborhood is. And you can't have the strongest schools possible if we're diverting public taxpayer money to private schools. If you want to go to a private school, great. If you want to apply for scholarships like crazy.
Yeah.
Depend on the benevolence of others for your children's education. Don't come to the taxpayers for that. We've got a school system,
No, I agree. And it was hard. It's hard to see, I live in Kenosha. We had a referendum on our ballot for the primary, and I don't have children. I don't have anyone in my life who's in school, at least a public school. And I voted yes, because I want those schools to be the best as possible. And the people of Kenosha said no. And I understand why. So once again, how are you going to fix that? And kudos to her for her mission. She's like, I want children to learn to read. I'm like, that's great.
Yes.
I want children to learn to read. But that is not the overarching problem to be, that's a smaller problem in the overall problem that we're facing right now. And she wasn't able to answer those questions for you. And when she got to the point where she was accusing you of interrupting her,
yes,
that became frustrating, because it was like, it's a simple question.
Yeah, and we only have so much time, so we wanted to get to much more than we were able to, but she did come on and talk about her candidacy, which again we are very appreciative of. Early voting starts today for the elections. The elections are 2 weeks from today on April 1st, and early in-person absentee ballot voting is now underway at your local clerk's office. Your local clerk is the one who decides the availability, the hours, the times, and so you really should go to your local city clerk, town clerk, find out what the hours are. If you don't know how to reach that local clerk, I'll tell you who does. The Wisconsin Elections Commission, and they have a site, My Vote, vote.wi.gov, where among the many things that it can do, voter registration, what's on your ballot, polling locations, but it will also, you put in your address, it'll connect you right to this is your local clerk. Here's how you reach your local clerk to find out how to go vote before April 1st, which I always try to do all the time. And so you could as well. And that way it won't be overlooked on April 1st for that election for state superintendent and that big election for Wisconsin State Supreme Court. Speaking of that, let's see, Donald Trump Jr. was in Oconomowoc yesterday, stumping for Brad Schimmel in his race for Wisconsin Supreme Court. Again, ostensibly a nonpartisan race, but in name only. And Don Jr. talking all about basically what folks on the progressive side have been saying, that this is a referendum on Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Don Jr. did not shy away from that at all and said, this is essentially another presidential election in the sense that, Brad Schimmel is going to carry water for Donald Trump on things that may come up, like, election results and whether to respect them or not. And there was a photo making the rounds on social media, Greg, of Brad Schimmel and others standing under, like, what was it, a 40-foot inflatable Donald Trump?
A giant Trump.
A giant parade balloon size. Yeah. And Brad Schimmel saying that he could be impartial if Donald Trump were to come before him, said the guy who posed under a 40-foot inflatable Donald Trump.
This coming from a party who was very upset when Mark Zuckerberg was donating money to help run elections smoother. They don't have a problem with this money coming in. They're okay with this.
Yes. So, again, always just be considering the source. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will be in Eau Claire today. That is somewhat related to the elections, but also to basically tweak Derek Van Orden, one of the many Republican members of Congress who aren't holding any kind of a genuine town hall, aren't really answering questions completely in teletown halls, aren't answering questions completely when talking to local reporters, and instead accusing the reporters of lying. And so when we called out Derek Van Orden yesterday about that, if you missed it earlier, he reposted an excerpt from our radio show on his social media to call us clowns and say we don't understand the definition of gaslighting, and he put in the definition of gaslighting. So go to Derek Van Orden's social media, look at a clip from our show, look at the definition of gaslighting, and tell us who you think is right. Hans Brighton Moser is coming up next. You're Up North. 34 tweets yesterday from Derek Van Orden. 34.
Papa Bear's getting fired up. You know what? Can I just? We're on the secret show. We're on the secret show right now.
Yeah, it's official. Here we are.
And I just want to say this. I want to address what Mark said. It's like people. My whole point is that people died, and that's a shame. That's the horrible part of it all, and that's what I want recognized. I want the fact is like, you know what? People did die under Trump. They died under Biden. They're probably going to die from COVID under Trump again. And that's the shame. That's something we should recognize as a bad thing. Not Biden versus Trump. No, that's the shame. It's like when Robin Voss so callously said, well, how many people from Wisconsin died from COVID? And at the time, it was like 4,000.
Yeah. Those are real people, folks.
Those are human beings.
And folks watching us have already, unless you're listening only, have read Cassandra's comment to Mark, stop politicizing a deadly disease. Also, Trump told us to drink bleach, so just stop. I can't tolerate this nonsense residual after watching people die every day. And that's just it. I will match degree for degree the amount of, perceived anger coming from people who are upset that, kids were pulled out of school and those safety precautions were there and they were just terrible. And I'm still angry about it. Pal, I'm still angry at you. All right. Yeah. That's one where we're not going to figure it out until, I don't know, until either you or somebody close to you catches it or what it takes you to care and understand that those safeguards weren't there to harm anybody, but to save lives.
Yeah.
And that other people undermined it.
I put on Facebook like maybe a month or two. No, it had to be because like for that 3 weeks we were together as a people. For like 3 full weeks, we were sourdoughing, we were watching TV, we made Jeff Bezos, a cajillion bazillionaire. And after it got ugly, I said, you're the ones who made this political. We just didn't want our parents to die. That's it.
Yeah. Alicia, I was a FedEx driver at the time. We wound up delivering double what we would during Christmas. It was a lot of late days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And, Alicia talked about, being afraid to pass anything to your kids. So you change clothes in the entryway, go to the shower. Sherry would do that as well, coming back from the hospital. Bathrobe was waiting for her in the garage and then go right to the shower. It was a scary time.
Yeah.
And other people want to be so callous about it. So yeah, when Mark goes, okay, snowflake, I'm like, don't poke at that hornet's nest, pal.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Have you rung up Hans?
I'm about to do that right now.
Groovy.
Hans Breitenmoser is about to enter the chat, everybody. One man enters, three men talk. Secret show. Are you there, Pat? It's me, Margaret.
Am I? Oh, yes, I am. Right.
I saw Secret Show still up, so I wasn't sure.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. All right, we'll come back in 25 seconds.
Okay.
Secreto Show.
Number one song this day in 1978 by the Bee Gees. Coming up on 7:35 on this Tuesday morning on Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow here in Chippewa Falls. Greg Bach and Racine. And somewhere on the road right now is our friend Hans Breitenmoser, who's normally on the farm out there near Merrill. Joins us occasionally on Tuesdays to talk about rural matters of one type or another. And I've got a couple things to talk to him about today. But he is joining us on the road with his hands at 10 and 2 on the wheel. I trust, Mr. Breitenmoser. Good morning. How are you?
Absolutely. Good morning, Pat.
Good. Good to hear. Where are your travels taking you these days?
So I'm headed to Pewaukee, Wisconsin today for National Farmers Organization 2-day annual conference.
Oh, okay. I have a sense of what the big topics will be, but why don't you fill in the blanks? I'm sure there's a few things you guys can talk about while you're all together.
Yeah, so National Farmers Organization is, as the name would suggest, an organization of farmers all across the nation, and they're kind of a marketing organization. So we sell our milk to national farmers, and then that milk ends up at a Sartori cheese plant to make cheese. But National Farmers market milk, grain, and advocates and has been advocating for farmers and sort of farm gate prices for years and years and years. And so this is their annual conference, and this is the first time I've ever gone to one. And one of the people that will be speaking to us is Mike Strands from National Farmers Union, talk about what's happening in Washington and so forth. And so, yeah, of course, a lot of the conversations, will be, centered around all the chaos that's coming out of the White House with regard to tariffs and, frozen funds and thawed out funds and refrozen funds and deportation and all the fun stuff that we're getting thrown at us.
Fun stuff is an interesting way of putting it. Yes. So we started out the program by talking about a report and analysis in the New York Times, and then I've written it up, and you can find it over at UpNorthNewsWI.com, noting that the Times looked at all of the retaliatory tariffs coming from Canada, from the European Union, from China. And where Trump has been doing a lot of across the board tariffs, like 20% on all goods from China or 25% on all steel and aluminum from Canada, the response from the other countries is much more specific, much more targeted, targeting Trump in swing states, and Wisconsin, of course, being the swingiest of them. And Wisconsin is at the top of the list in terms of the highest percentage of our total jobs being in industries that are targeted by these retaliatory tariffs. The other 49 states, those retaliatory tariffs will hit industries that employ 1 to 8% of the state's labor force. In Wisconsin, nearly 10% of the workforce is in areas that are going to be hit by these retaliatory tariffs. You understand it. And I think that we're going to find a lot more of our friends and neighbors who think it's just something that happens to somebody else and are going to be in for a rude awakening if this drags on.
Oh, yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. And I think Wisconsin is in a unique position because of what we do here and what we grow here and produce here and so forth. But yeah, I mean, if you're in ag, you're going to be in the crosshairs of retaliatory tariffs, because what a lot of Wisconsin exports, and certainly what a lot of the United States exports, are agricultural products. So, those are things that these other countries can target. And I've said for years that, these trade wars, they tend not to do any good for anybody. I do sincerely believe that we have to, protect our own interests and be genuinely concerned about what, how much we're buying versus how much we're selling and so forth. Absolutely 100% true. But I also feel like these things, these trade, relationships have to be mutually beneficial. And I keep coming back to the idea of, some of this stuff with Canada and Mexico, for example. These are the same trade agreements that the president himself came up with the last time he was in office. And now they're the worst thing in the world. And by God, we got to get rid of them because they're super unfair. You're the one that signed these things. What am I missing here?
I'll never, honestly, for all the times that we've talked about national media and double standards and things like that, this is right up there at the top of the list. If this is something that a Joe Biden or a Barack Obama had done, it would be such a much bigger story. Like, why is Joe Biden opposed to the very trade deal that he signed? Why did he forget that he signed it or something like that? And Donald Trump's getting just a flat out pass on this. And it won't be, unfortunately, until later, like I said, as more Wisconsin folks are either losing jobs or they don't get pay raises because their companies didn't do as much trade. And it just is taking a long time for some folks to connect the dots, but the dots are there, and the dots are very real. Now, last time around, what Trump did was add to the national debt by sending out support checks totaling something like $27 billion to keep farmers afloat. Well, what did we actually gain then when all was said and done? But we had Selena Heller talk to Les Danielson, a farmer from near Cadott. And he says, I think that's one of the reasons a lot of farmers like Trump, because they received all of those Trump payments. But, the man who destroys our market really shouldn't be rewarded for using government money, all of which is borrowed, to backfill the farmer's income. And it makes me wonder, Hans, if Les's point is going to carry more weight with more farmers who go, this is the guy that's the reason debt's going up. It's nice to have that check, but I'd rather have a market for my soybeans.
Well, exactly. I mean, historically, farmers would prefer actually good margins to any subsidies that we get, because it well, everybody just wants to do business, and what I find so hypocritical from the Republican Party is this constant notion that capitalism über alles and no government involvement, and then they create a situation where then they're feeling like, oh, now we have to support the farmers with taxpayer dollars. When had they not mismanaged it to begin with, we wouldn't be having the conversation, and we would have decent, sustainable prices. So, and the other thing again, and at the risk of going down a rabbit trail here, but in none of this conversation are we talking about multinational corporations that corner markets and monopolize things, and nobody in Washington is talking about antitrust legislation. That's if they want to do something for farmers, that's the conversation that should be happening. How can we make sure that there are more markets for us, and we don't have just a handful of meat packers or a handful of soybean processors or what have you? That's the real problem. But once again, I feel like some of this is shiny object. Look over here. When in fact, the real problem, they want to keep hidden from us, because there are big donors that are keeping politicians' pockets lined.
Oh, it's absolutely providing cover for corporations, and we note in the story on our website, we quote Dana Schnipper is a building materials supplier in New York, who told the Associated Press he thinks the tariffs will give American manufacturers cover to raise prices on steel components. Schnipper says these prices will never come down. Whatever's going to happen, these things will be sticky. And that's something that we definitely notice, is that when you provide that kind of cover, suddenly those temporary price increases, they don't seem to be all that temporary, and that may be exactly where we're going from here, Hans.
I really think so, and it bothers the consumer, and it bothers me as a producer, because all of this is then inflated prices. And so when you've got inflation already going on, and inflation is in the news, it does provide great cover for retailers to say, we can add a few bucks onto that product, and nobody's going to blame us. Everybody's going to blame Joe Biden or some other nefarious government type deal. But the other thing that people have to understand that are outside the farming community is, dairy farming, for example, is one of the few enterprises where we buy retail and sell wholesale. And so we're already squeezed. And so when our prices are squeezed and our margins are lowered by having lower prices for lack of markets and so forth, that stinks bad enough. But remember, we also buy a lot of stuff made out of steel, a lot of stuff that comes from overseas. And so here we go again, right? We're paying more for the products that we need to produce the product that we produce that is valued less as a result of losing those markets. So we're feeling it. We're at the risk of, sounding like I'm complaining again. It is a little stressful, because we're getting kind of pinched here.
Well, sure, but I mean, again, these are points that have to be made over and over and over again until some folks finally pay attention and say, wait a minute, there might be something to that point. We're talking to Hans Brighton Moser, a dairy farmer from up in Lincoln County. And let me switch gears to something that the Wisconsin Assembly will be taking up today in Madison. And it is a bill that would essentially micromanage county sheriffs when it comes to immigration enforcement. Because right now, county sheriffs in Wisconsin have wide latitude in determining the extent to which they will cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. But that discretion would be taken away if a bill is passed later today by Republicans in the state assembly, and if it were to be signed by the governor, which nobody expects to happen. But this is the kind of thing that they're spending their time and your tax dollars working on today. The bill calls for a 15% reduction in state aid to communities where local law enforcement refuses to carry out the stricter practices sought by U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. And the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel tried to survey every sheriff in the state and got most of them to respond in one degree or another. And you get this, again, this wide variety of responses from sheriffs, some of whom will say, look, unauthorized immigration is not a criminal offense. No matter how many times Republicans say they're illegal, they've committed a crime, unauthorized immigration is a civil violation. And yet that's where they want to put all of our resources. And yet you have other sheriffs who have indicated not only do they ask about immigration information at things like traffic stops, but if they come across a crime victim who is undocumented, they will report that person to ICE. And so people are less likely to report crimes that happen to them. And Hans, I know it varies from county to county, but the story in the Journal Sentinel points out that some sheriffs are hearing from farmers and others saying, don't be doing this. I got hard workers here. They're doing their best. They're supporting families. Don't be going along with the political games of demonizing people with darker colored skin when there could be other ways to use your resources. I'm guessing you have similar thoughts on that bill.
Yeah, well, this irritates me on a number of levels. I was on the county board in Lincoln County for 10 years, and the last thing any county needs is another unfunded mandate, for starters. And this is basically, Republicans in Madison actively, I don't want to use the word extortion, but I mean, we're getting close right here, right? When they're saying, okay, this is what you're going to do, and otherwise we're going to take away funding. Well, how dare they? How dare they is what I say, because, the Republicans used to be the party of local control. Well, that's gone completely down the crapper because they have no interest in local control at all. And now, to have Wisconsin legislators basically do the bidding of their national party is just ridiculous. I mean, are these people not even Wisconsinites anymore? And then, getting back to the root cause of this whole thing to begin with is it's this manufactured nonsense about, immigrants, committing crimes at a higher rate than anyone else. That's blatantly false. It's a lie. And so this whole deportation thing has been based on a great big fat lie right from the get-go. And that's what's so frustrating, is that we're creating public policy based on a falsehood that doesn't exist to begin with.
Right, and just basing it all on racial profiling and other things that we don't have time to get into right now, but they're very dark places in some people's souls. Hans Breitenmoser, safe travels to you. Thanks for jumping on the line with us today.
Yep, no problem.
All right, when we come back.
Do the same for me one day when I'm laying on the beach.
There you go. You hear that, Dan? You're on notice. Chad Holmes is next. You're up north. There we go. All right. I don't know if Hans is still on the line, but thank him for me, and we'll be back with Chad.
Chad, can you hear us?
Chad,
I can hear
you
you.
hear us? Oh, look, and his voice is still there, ladies and gentlemen. Still there.
Chad Holmes, can you hear me?
Let's see.
All right, coming back in about 20 seconds from this beep beep.
The Chad Holmes Show is coming up shortly here on 98.9 WXCO, or as Tony puts it on YouTube, Chad Wassum in Wausau. Chad, how are you?
Doing great. How are you guys doing?
Very good. Tony also writes in on YouTube, Hans is the best. Great conversation about sheriffs and local control. Had no idea this was happening today in Madison, but it is. That's what's happening at the State Assembly here. So, you can listen to Chad's show on the Civic Media app as well. Head to civicmedia.us to learn more. If I could continue the conversation just briefly with you, Chad, just to point out that in our story, we bring up the story that will go up on our website later today once the Assembly passes this bill, as we expect they will. We note a couple of stories here that have been told by USA Today and the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. There was Ma Yang, a Milwaukee area mother of 5, who came to this country as a baby with her Hmong refugee parents. She was detained earlier this month and flown to Laos, a country she has never lived in, and she does not speak the language. And she is there without money and without the insulin she needs to treat her diabetes. Then there's Camila Munoz, a college student from Peru, came to Wisconsin Dells on a work-study visa, stayed past her visa expiration date due to the COVID pandemic. She was picking up towels at a water park and working in food service. She later met and married a local and was taking steps to become a U.S. citizen, but it's not final yet. And coming back from their honeymoon last month, she was detained at an airport and is now in a detention center in Louisiana that costs taxpayers hundreds of dollars a day per person. For folks that think, things aren't going to be that bad, it is that bad for these folks and more right here in Wisconsin. And these stories are only going to grow, Chad. I just wonder if the compassion for these folks is going to grow.
Compassion is a good word that needs to be put out there, because the cruelty seems to be the point, and they get their jollies out of, number one, doing it, and number two, then getting away with avoiding court orders that say stop it.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that they handled the whole El Salvadoran situation over the weekend. Oh, whoopsie! I mean, at what point does somebody say, step up and say you can't do this? Because apparently a weakness in our system is showing up, where we've had up to this point, even Nixon would be upset when the courts would say you have to give up the tapes, but ultimately he did so.
Because he didn't say to the judge, you and what army, and so let's try to game this out, because it could happen yet this week where the judge in this particular case says, well, I have no choice but to hold so-and-so in contempt. It might be the lawyers. It might be some administration official. And this judge orders those folks into custody, for example, for failing to follow a court order. You have to send a message. What does Trump do then? Immediately pardon these people? Does Trump, try to send soldiers to a courthouse to prevent somebody from being taken into custody because they ignored his court order? And again, I know it all sounds alarmist. I'm just saying we could see that kind of a crisis yet this week with the lawlessness of this administration.
Well, a year ago, the Supreme Court said that he was not going to be held criminally liable. Anything that he does in office with his official duties, that leaves it up to folks in the other branches to be the ones that are trying to be equal within our government. And unfortunately, at this point, we don't see much of that from obviously both the Senate and the House under Republican control. But at the same time, it does not appear that the Democrats have the stomach to push any kind of, guardrails against Donald Trump and his administration. And the courts, as we see, again, so much of what they're able to do depends on the other branches respecting their authority within our system of government. And unfortunately, we've seen over the years that Donald Trump and the people around Donald Trump, I think, we talk about Donald Trump all the time. It's really the people around Donald Trump that are, I think, as dangerous as anybody that we've ever seen in this country, because Trump spends so much time golfing these days that I think that the keys to the store have been left with some very dangerous people like Stephen Miller.
Yeah. a little bit closer to home in terms of compassion for folks, and I have no idea your thoughts on Shireen Seward from the Wausau Pilot and Review, but I read part of her column on Friday's show about taking her first days off in like 8 years. And I know in the early days, at least, if not still now, she wasn't the biggest fan of Up North News, but I completely understood her point about finally taking some days off because of how toxic the comments have become about journalists trying to do their job. And folks, if this is happening in sleepy little Wausau, Wisconsin, no place is safe from this kind of toxic language.
And the thing about it is, again, it feels like Pandora's box has been opened up with this, and I have no doubt what she has seen has been awful. To be honest with you, I've been getting a few of those myself recently. I just think that there is a part of the community right now that is going after anybody that is a little bit outside what they consider their mainstream. And I think we're seeing in this era that you're either for us or you're against us. There's no real gray area that if you ever say anything bad about dear leader Don or dear leader Doug in this community or
or Derek in this one where you get called a clown, So
exactly. No, I mean it really is that if you step outside what they feel like you should be saying, they're not afraid to come at you and come at you very, very hard.
Exactly. Well, look, you've hacked off a mayor. I upped you. I've done a congressman. Ball's in your court, buddy. Go after Ron Johnson. Let's see it happen.
Tiffany's going after. I mean, he's meeting with some agreement today, and he will refuses to have open meetings with the constituents. So it's the same all over the place right now.
You want to see my shocked face on that? Chad Holmes is up next on 98.9 WXCO. Thank you, sir. Have a great day. Greg's back in 2 hours for Matt Nair on air. Tune in for that as well on the Civic Media Radio Network or on the Civic Media app. Have a great Tuesday, everybody. I'm Pat Kreitlow here in Chippewa Falls. We'll see you tomorrow morning up north. Secret sign off. Bye, everybody.